In Amazonia, each year, a miraculous resurrection takes place. A submerged kingdom, lying beneath 10 meters of water, rises to the surface. This is the story of the land's victory and of the changing fortunes of its creatures, the subjects of the annual battle between earth and water. Each year, the greatest river on Earth drowns beneath a vast, steely mirror. Thin ribbons of jungle, like floating islands in the sky, hint at the world beneath the water's surface, just waiting to be reborn. The floods have reached their pinnacle, but the mighty water wheel, which drives life and death in Amazonia, continues to turn. A revolution has begun in the warring worlds of the Amazon. Below, a drowned forest silently awaits its rebirth. It's not the wind, but the river's receding waters which strain the highest branches. In this parallel universe, no birds sing. But fish of every color, shape and size flit mutely through the boughs. Strange, delicate baskets dangle underwater, not to catch fish, but to one day ensconce the eggs of the South American weaver bird once the floods recede. Now, the giant otter's den lies dormant under 5 fathoms of water. But next year's young will play and tussle on these very banks. One day soon, beneath this jungle canopy, a jaguar will stalk an anxious deer. Monkeys will witness the struggle from the trees above. Like the phoenix, this silent, watery world will come alive once again. A floating frontier divides the realms of land and water, and the creatures must navigate both to survive. In Amazonia, the most unlikely creatures can swim, and swim surprisingly well, in their own ways. The burrowing armadillo seeks out a treetop perch to check for danger. Its quick, efficient stroke, and not its body armor, will protect it from the jaws of a hungry jaguar. A sloth emerges to find a comfortable place in the trees. It's one of the few land mammals that can actually move faster in the water than on ground. The long wait is over. The floods of the wet season begin to abate, and the waters start to recede. Across Amazonia, the inland seas yield to dry land. The greatest river system in the world is draining. The tops of the trees stretch into blue sky, and sunshine caresses their leaves for the first time in weeks. In the Amazon, the trees have adapted to survive the long, wet season underwater. Now, eager settlers return to their homes among the branches. Already, a few inches above the falling river's surface, a tiny jewel-like hummingbird sits on its thimble-sized nest in a newly colonized palm. The sharp spines of the trunk provide protection for the miniature brood. In the annual battle for dominance between water and land, the forest now gains the upper hand. The victory touches every creature, large and small. Whether high in the canopy or on the forest floor far beneath, the withdrawal of the waters alters the face of the wilderness. For herbivores, the newly liberated land means increasing opportunities to forage for food. The yellow-rumped caciques can now reclaim their nests. This colony returns to the same roost as last year. After several months of water damage, their homes require some serious renovation. Recycling is essential to the remodeling process. When the females can, they will use a partially built nest and won't hesitate to borrow building materials from an absent neighbour. Despite such appropriations, the elaborate abodes should be completed in time for the breeding season to begin. As their name suggests, piratic flycatchers have earned a notorious reputation for stealing nests. Unless promptly evicted, the squatters will probably take over the entire colony. The cacique males now go about the important business of attracting a partner by puffing up their plumage and showing off their remarkable vocal range. They are some of Amazonia's most gregarious and conspicuous inhabitants. They are gifted ventriloquists. A single bird can sound like a chorus. They are said to be able to imitate the territorial roar of a jaguar. As the dry season continues to redraw the map, animals stake new claims and patrol new boundaries. Hunters stay on the lookout for potential prey. At 5.5 meters long, this female anaconda could take on any jaguar. Anacondas can grow up to 9 meters in length. They use pressure, not poison, to kill their prey. Their coiled body squeezes a victim so tightly that circulation ceases and life ebbs away. As food becomes scarce, desperate measures are called for. The jaguar probes for signs of hidden life in the riverbed. Some fish hide in the mud during the day and come out only at night. Although the jaguar prefers to dine on larger prey, such as monkeys, deer and tapirs, this unfussy feline will settle for a catfish. Jaguars are the only big cats which routinely kill their prey by sinking their large canines into its skull. The jaguar's powerful jaws are even capable of splitting open the shell of a tortoise. But it can also chew delicately to avoid any sharp bones. All across Amazonia, animals reclaim emerging environments once submerged by the waters. the rare, giant otters return to their holts or burrows in this reborn world. While the retreating waters benefit some, they also dispossess others. The South American manatee spends a few days browsing on the grasses beneath the vanishing backwaters. Soon, four-legged creatures will graze in its place. In Amazonia's annual battle of the elements, Earth is now gaining ground. The water meadows of the dry season make the Amazon a favorite destination for all kinds of migrant birds. Many come from far away, even as far as Greenland, drawn to the lush variety of insects, fish, and fruit-bearing trees. Just one of the many visiting globetrotters, the sandpiper flies down from the Canadian Arctic to the warm climate of Amazonia every year. With each day, seasonal brooks and streams continue to disappear. The biggest basin in the world is emptying, 175,000 litres per second. Even in the deeper main channels, the water levels drop. These are increasingly rivers of sand and mud. Beneath the surface, river dolphins have begun to evacuate the area. If they're cut off from the main channels, they will die. Yet the botos, or pink river dolphins, face a tantalizing decision. The falling rivers create great concentrations of fish. But if they hunt for too long, they risk being cut off from their escape routes to the main channels. And they have more than themselves to consider. The fate of tomorrow's generation travels with them. Welling up like the foundations of some lost Atlantis, the underlying structures of the Amazon now emerge. The dolphins have disappeared. The waters recede rapidly. The pools have become barren. Now, the scavengers will feast. High above, vultures soar on the thermals. Nothing escapes their attention. Their keen sense of smell helps them find their next meal. As consumers of carrion, they have adapted perfectly. Bacterial microbes in their intestines help them fight off even the most potent of toxins, including botulism. Like a convention of rival undertakers, 3 types of vulture vie for the deceased: a large piranha, while the other vultures take their turn, a black vulture airs his impressive funereal wings.
This show was created for you and your family to watch together. Welcome to Nat Geo Wild.
In the dry season, there is no shortage of work. The larger king vulture need not stand on ceremony or exercise the same patience. His presence intimidates the others, but because he has no sense of smell, he has to rely on the other vultures to find food. Back in the steamy jungle, a female jaguar is in season. But in the expanding rainforest of the dry season, finding a suitable partner can be as uncertain as finding the next meal. Single, highly secretive female, desperately seeking equally solitary, secretive male for short-term relationship. But how do you place such a personal ad in the rainforest? Sound is one way, though her hoarse messages of desire can only carry so far. Smell is another. By leaving signals in her urine, she not only defines her boundaries, but lets her potential suitors know she is ready to receive them. Her message is clear. No monkey business, no lolling around. After the briefest of courtships, they get down to business. They mate up to 100 times a day. A few seconds is all it takes. Their romance will last for only a few brief days. Hardly the most attentive of fathers, the male will disappear back into the rainforest long before the cubs are born in about 3 months' time. In the dangerous hide-and-seek world of Amazonia, smell discreetly attracts a mate. Anacondas cannot roar like the jaguar, but a lone female anaconda can entice not just one male, but a dozen from the far reaches of the forest. When she's ready to breed, she leaves an inviting chemical trail and the males come calling. First one, then another. And another. And another. She entertains all of them at her mating ball. Up to a dozen males attempt to couple with her simultaneously. And they may stay enmeshed for up to a month. It's thought that despite all the slithering and confusion, the female can actually decide which male will fertilize her eggs. The eggs then hatch inside her body, and in 6 months, she will bear live young. In the struggle for existence, the fate of an individual is like a mere leaf on a tree. Yet each individual plays a small role in the forest's survival. High in the canopy stands a lofty Brazil nut tree. At first glance, it has little in common with the lowly agouti at its feet, making off with its fallen fruit. But the agouti is one of the few rodents in the forest whose strong teeth can gnaw through the hard, woody exterior in order to get at the cluster of familiar seeds inside. The agouti likes to hoard. What it doesn't eat now, it saves for later. By hoarding these nuts, it unwittingly serves not only its own ends, but those of the tree as well. It marks a spot near its cache. Soon the agouti's scent attracts unwanted attention. The profusion of scents baffles the jaguar, but another prowler joins the chase. From Alaska in the north to Tierra del Fuego in the south, the puma ranges more widely than any other cat in the Americas. Whether the hunter is a jaguar or a puma, the agouti's fate is the same. Hidden and forgotten, the Brazil nut, which the agouti unlocked and buried, now stands a chance of germinating. In another 100 years, it may be a tree towering over a rainforest clearing of its own. In the Amazon, opportunism is the secret to survival. The coming of night provides another set of possibilities for the jaguar. Its finely honed senses allow it to hunt as effectively by night as by day. It gets its name from the Indian word for he who kills with one leap. While other big cats run down their prey with bursts of speed, the jaguar relies on ambush. Stealth and the crushing strength of its powerful jaws have taken it to the top of the predatory pyramid. An unending drama plays out variations on the theme of cat and mouse, every minute of every night and every day. Simply searching for the next meal means risking being someone else's. Predators lurk everywhere. The lancehead, one of Amazonia's most poisonous snakes, strikes with lightning speed and lethal venom. It samples the air with its tongue. The mouse's daring escape is short-lived. In the jungles of Brazil, giant spiders as big as dinner plates take on a range of prey, from birds and snakes to insects. Tarantulas hunt mainly on the ground, using tripwires, and because of poor eyesight, they use hairs on their legs, which link directly to their nervous system to detect the slightest vibration. It launches an initial attack, injecting poison through hollow fangs to stun the mouse quickly. It can't chew, so it will liquefy the body before sucking it dry. In the struggle for existence, millions of creatures deploy different strategies for survival and fill every available niche. The complex liaisons in this constantly changing world choreograph the rainforest's intricate dance of life and death. Bats make up almost half of all mammal species in Amazonia. They total over 900 species, of which at least a dozen share this single cave. As a group, bats are opportunists. As individual species, they are specialists. They are the only mammal in the world that can truly fly. And some use a form of sonar or echolocation to catch insects and avoid obstacles. But each species has its own peculiar strategy for survival. As the relative safety of the night falls, the bats prepare to leave the roost and forage in the waiting forest. A vast outdoor buffet awaits. Flying low over the water and trailing its feet on the surface, the fishing bat scoops up its prize. Others snatch frogs. Razor-sharp teeth allow the infamous vampire to enjoy a meal of fresh blood. Others live on fruit, in this case, a fallen Balusia. But spending too long on the ground draws unwanted attention. The bright-eyed margay spends most of its life in the trees, rarely venturing to the ground. Specially adapted hind feet allow it to descend head first. Disappointingly, it's only an unappetizing frog. Any cat would prefer a more mouse-like morsel. The succulent fruit makes this diner oblivious to the danger. A specialist perhaps, but the margay seizes the opportunity and a hot meal. The canopy shelters the Earth's richest and most diverse ecosystem. Insects make up over 90% of the animals in the Amazon. 2.5 square kilometers of forest can house over 50,000 insect species. But its very richness is also its greatest paradox. The seemingly endless woodland boasts over 300 species of trees in 1 hectare. But miraculously, the jungle giants, such as this, among the tallest trees on Earth, grow in remarkably poor soils. The rate of tree growth in the central Amazon is also among the slowest of any forest on Earth, due to nutrient-poor soil and low light conditions on the forest floor. From the centuries-long rise and fall of one of these mighty trees to the annual ebb and flow of the floodwaters and the briefest 24-hour birth and reproduction of an insect, thousands of cycles of regeneration continue to breathe life into the rainforest itself. The rainforest of Amazonia, where life, in all its beauty and myriad forms, reigns supreme. Less known than the surface of Mars, its inhabitants stranger than science fiction. This is Earth's final, unexplored frontier. This is Amazonia's Big Top. The world's mightiest river breaks through the canopy of the largest tropical rainforest on the planet. Combined with its tributaries, the Amazon drains into an area of almost 7 million square kilometers, more than half of South America. Like a giant circus tent, 9 times the size of Texas, Amazonia's tree-covered world hosts the greatest variety of plants and animals on the planet. "60 meters above the ground, less studied than the sea floor, until recently, this incredible spectacle defied even the most intrepid scientists and explorers. So many of its riches have yet to be recorded that it is believed that this bizarre and beautiful canopy could house half of all the world's species. In addition to millions of insects, Amazonia's impressive cast of characters includes at least 300 different mammals. At least 175 different lizards, over 400 reptiles and amphibians, tree climbers of every shape and size, and a third of the world's birds. These magnificent creatures all have their own unique tricks and talents, costumes and camouflage, and command performances. A 100 years ago, the American explorer William Beebe wrote of the Amazon,
"Yet another continent of life remains to be discovered, not upon the earth, but 100 or 200 feet above it, extending over thousands of square miles. There awaits a rich harvest for the naturalist who overcomes the obstacles, gravitation, ants, rotten trunks, and mounts to the summit of the jungle trees.
Since Beebe marveled at this incredible spectacle, scientists have had to multiply many times over all previous estimates of the extent of life in these treetops. Only recently, the sheer number of termites has come to light. More than 200 species call the Amazon River basin their home, a cumulative mass 3 times that of all the birds and mammals in the rainforest. Yet, almost 100 years later, Amazonia is revealing her secrets slowly, like crumbs from a giant's banquet table. For a vast number of species, the canopy of this tropical rainforest is a desirable place to live. With so many creatures clamoring for a piece of the pie in this high-wire world, competition for survival in this big top is fierce. Millions of years of neck-and-neck rivalry mean that these animals have evolved their own unique strategies for survival in the rainforest canopy. Evolution has led the sloth up a more leisurely ladder to its place in the canopy. With only half the muscles of other animals its size, the sloth subsists on one of the poorest diets. This languid mammal can take up to a month to travel 2 kilometers, if it had to. Although it can stand, it can't walk on its feet, so it must drag itself around by its hands. In the water, however, this lazy beast becomes something of a bathing beauty and can swim quite well. Avoiding any strenuous competition for food, the 3-toed sloth selects the leaves and twigs only a few other animals can stomach. With this low-cal diet, the sloth has little energy to spare, so it sleeps up to 19 hours a day. It locks itself under a hard-to-reach branch to digest. It will take 100 hours to process a single bellyful. The ability to rotate its head almost full circle means this contortionist can keep an eye out for predators. It's also the only wild animal to have plants living on it. Each hair has microscopic grooves which provide a comfortable home for olive green algae. It's believed that these plants, and its extended naps, help camouflage the sloth from its chief predator, the harpy eagle. Sloths give birth to a single baby, which spends 6 to 9 months clinging to its mother. Three-toed sloths are not normally aggressive, but like any mother defending her child, she has a trick or two up her sleeve. You are what you eat in the rainforest, and leaf eaters fall low on the list. The largest monkeys in the New World, the howler monkeys, are not finicky when it comes to food, which may explain why they are also the most common monkey in Amazonia. It hasn't turned to the low-calorie extremes of the sloth, but it eats poorer fare than just about any other monkey. Like the sloth, the howler's slow metabolism forces them into the topmost branches of the canopy, where they can warm up in the morning sunshine and jumpstart their day. They rarely explore much of the forest, and when they do, they cover less distance than other monkeys in the Amazonian basin. Less energetic, less fastidious, less curious. Howlers do one thing more loudly than just about any other land animal, howl. In fact, these guttural sounds can travel up to 5 kilometers through the dense forest. It's said that when the first explorers penetrated the depths of the rainforest and heard the howlers' calls, they fled in terror, fearing that some monster had encircled them. Oddly, these bellicose howls and hoots actually kept the peace by defining territory and keeping the monkey troops out of conflict. Standing 1 meter high, weighing in at 8 kilos, with a 2-meter wingspan, the harpy eagle is unequaled in strength. According to Greek mythology, the harpies were half-woman, half-bird monsters which swooped down from the heavens to seize the souls of the dead and punish them. Today, it's a tamarin that faces the most powerful talons of any bird on Earth. Unassailable, the harpy eagle headlines Amazonia's big top. Beneath the multi-layered world of the canopy, the groundlings compete for survival. But in the tropics, physical conflict is often a dangerous and deadly last resort. Millions of disease-promoting organisms will invade even the most minor injury, causing fatal infections. Avoiding conflict is a constant preoccupation in nature, especially here. To avoid surprise encounters, the animals repeatedly announce their presence. While howlers use sound to signal to other groups, the tiny squirrel monkey has evolved a less raucous, though no less discreet method. It urinates on its hands and feet to leave its personal signature, a chemical barcode, as it scampers along the branches. But no system is foolproof, and where animals compete for resources, disputes over real estate are inevitable. Although it's heavier than the squirrel monkey, the capuchin's tail can't grip as strongly. It's completely outmatched. Despite putting up a good fight, it flees the canopy and escapes to the forest floor. Sometimes the reason for these bouts is unclear, especially when the participants aren't obvious competitors, such as parrots and monkeys. According to Indian mythology, the golden-handed tamarin got its conspicuous markings from having to roll out the sun each morning. Tamarins are naturally inquisitive. They like to know what the neighbours are up to. The golden-handed tamarin, however, takes its curiosity to dangerous lengths, teasing the neighbouring macaws. but the macaws are not amused. Their powerful claws and nutcracker beaks makes this a risky game of cat and mouse for the tamarin. Outnumbered, the tamarin decides it's time to quit while it's still ahead. The tamarin is only a minor distraction. The macaws have other, more important matters to attend to. The breeding season is approaching, so the two birds get in the mood by preening each other's feathers and faces. They will mate and pair for life. The macaws are some of the forest's most extravagantly conspicuous inhabitants. But for each known rainforest species, there are many more unknown species. Yet all these creatures play a role in the jungle's intricate drama of interdependence. In the give-and-take tradings of Amazonia, the most intricate relationships in the rainforest are between animals and trees. In this competitive market, leaves are the commonest currency. Some trees produce toxins to repel insect invaders, but at a cost that drains the tree of valuable energy. Other trees have developed a more diplomatic solution. They've struck up an armistice with some of the ants. These trees provide one particular kind of ant with room and board. At the base of each leaf stem, special nectar spouts provide the ants with a steady supply of high-energy drinks. In return, the tiny ant vigilantes act as neighborhood watch and defend the tree from attack. They will even take on and drive away the far larger leaf cutters. The arrangement suits both parties. Scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. Or in this case, feed me sweets and I'll bite the legs of your enemy. Such interdependence provides a strategic advantage in a deceptively lush environment because it's more difficult to survive than it looks. On the darkened forest floor, the lack of sunlight strangles many plants. At the other extreme, the topmost branches risk being seared by the sun. But somehow, despite everything, life thrives. April, and the storm clouds roll in again across the mantle of Amazonia. The dry season is over. The annual deluge sweeps across the whole face of this epic wilderness. The water worlds reassert their dominance over the land, bringing new life. Aquatic prey and predators, like the giant otters, return to feast. The mighty Amazon and its tributaries escape their banks, taking hold of the land and submerging almost 350,000 square kilometers, an area larger than England, to a depth of over 10 meters. Here, amidst the flooded forests, the most dramatic events in the life of the canopy will soon unfold. The surging water levels encourage the trees to put on a dazzling display of floral fireworks. The flooded forests make up only a small fraction of Amazonia, only 2%. But almost half of all the flowering trees and plants in the entire rainforest grow and bloom here. The sudden explosion of colour attracts an equally phenomenal concentration of life. "60 metres up in the air, the stage is set for a spectacular flower show. The rains have just begun to slow, and the trees begin to reproduce. Flowers will light up these forests continually for the next 6 to 8 months. But the individual blooms will only last for 2 weeks at a time. The rainforest has one big thing on its mind: sex. A thick and heady scent fills the air. The variety of colour and form is equally intoxicating. But how does the gene-laden pollen in these flowers fertilise other plants? It's important that the right messenger delivers the right pollen to the right flower. So the forest giants turn to tiny allies. Insects are the most numerous creatures of the rainforest, perhaps 30 million in all. In this mating game, most pollinators are insects, like butterflies, which flutter and flirt with one flower and then another. But how do you bring brand loyalty to the butterfly brain of an insect? The flowers drive this process by luring tiny allies with their decadent colours, sumptuous scents and voluptuous shapes, and discourage the less desirable visitors. But insects are not the only cupids in this complex sex life beneath the canopy. Hummingbirds, among the smallest warm-blooded creatures in the world, are the guardian angels of flower nectar. Only a high-energy fuel such as nectar can drive a metabolism with a heartbeat 10 times as fast as a human's.
This show was created for you and your family to watch together. Welcome to Nat Geo Wild.
Each flower delivers only a few drops of precious nectar. The hummingbird, like a tropical cupid, is just one of the many pages assisting the reproductive liaisons that go on beneath the big top. Pollen is not the hummingbird's only cargo. Tiny stowaways hitch lifts from bloom to bloom. With so little time at each stopover, these hungry flower mites must race up and down to the next meal. It's the equivalent of a 100-yard dash. In addition to allies, the trees have enemies too. One of the many reasons they need to produce blooms in such profusion is because of flower thieves. These monkeys aren't helping with the forest's fertilization process. They're neither pollinating the flowers nor spreading seeds. To do that, the trees have to look to other rainforest creatures for assistance, and they do it day and night. Evening comes, but this does not mean that activity ceases. Far from it. While others are preparing to wind down, a whole range of animals are waking to begin their day. As the night falls, the howler monkeys make their final calls, and woolly monkeys put on an evening performance of gymnastics. High in the treetops, the 24-hour circus never sleeps. When one act ends, another begins. It's time for the late show. Another cast takes over in the big top. The night shift is beginning. The pollination must go on. The still air fills with the cloying perfume of night-blooming flowers. Unlike the vivid colours of the day, these nocturnal blooms wear white. Drab by day, at night they come splendidly into their own. Instead of relying on colour, they rely on fragrance to attract visitors. They get fewer takers, but their visitors tend to be more loyal. During the day, flowers attract insects and birds, but flowers of the night lure very different clients. More than half of bats in the Amazon depend on plants for their food. These bats use echolocation to navigate the night sky. By producing ultrasound waves that bounce off objects and produce patterns which help the bats find their food. They are colorblind, so garish bouquets would be wasted on them. These night flowers need to be large and conspicuous to be spotted more easily. It's a brief encounter. The plant dusts pollen onto the bat as it drinks. Bats and plants get mutual satisfaction. But attracting the wrong sort of attention is as much a problem at night as it is by day. From the plant's point of view, its precious pollen is wasted on a ravenous caterpillar. Bats don't just transfer pollen and fertilize flowers. They provide an important service to the forest by spreading the tree's seeds. First, The trees bribe the insects, birds and bats with food and nectar to travel from plant to plant. Now, they must spread their seed somehow. Time for a new incentive: fruit. This bat, gorging on the pulpy fruit of an inga, has only one concern: to eat as much as it can. It is oblivious to any assistance it might bring to the plant. Bats are not the only performance artists who can hang upside down. A wily Amazonian raccoon can always find a way to reach inaccessible fruit. The kinkajou has its priorities the right side up. But what does the tree get out of the arrangement? Plants produce these delicious and nutritious gifts at great personal cost. And they need the best start in life that they can get, if they're to survive. Any offspring that doesn't fall far enough from the tree can face many difficulties. It's rare that a sapling will survive close by. Only by hitching a ride inside the stomach of a passing animal can the seeds travel away from their parent tree to where conditions may be more favorable. Birds, bats, monkeys, fish, and this kinkajou are all unwitting cargo carriers. The kinkajou and the seeds will be far away when the next day dawns. The flowering crowns of the Amazonian rainforest are a feast for the eyes, but with the harvest that follows, the banqueting truly begins. By day, monkeys take over where bats and kinkajous left off. They ransack the heavily laden branches. They're only too pleased to indulge in the canopy's succulent bribes. In doing so, they too will help spread the seeds of the trees, which will in turn literally support their existence. With food so readily available, many species